One of the most anticipated yet confounding fighters to be added into Ultimate's initial wave of newcomers would indisputably have to go to Ridley. Ever since Brawl, Ridley was heavily requested by the player base for a multitude of reasons, but the main one that I can remember is that while other big franchises have a ton of representatives, Metroid has only one, Samus. It would have made perfect sense for a sworn adversary to be included in Smash given other protagonists like Mario, Link, Fox, Kirby, and Donkey Kong have had their rivals brought in at some point or another. Bowser, Ganondorf, Wolf, Meta Knight, and King K. Rool. Surely enough, our wish was granted, and the big bad space pirate Ridley became the second unique Metroid character to be instituted into the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. Yet, despite everyone's excitement towards his release, his competitive history can only really be described as non-existent. Even off his initial hype, there wasn't a whole lot of success or even showing for the dragon from top to high to even mid-levels of play. So for today's episode of Why No One Plays, we're gonna go through Ridley's design and history to find out where things went wrong for him. I said earlier that Ridley is one of the most confounding fighters to ever be brought into Smash, even when you consider the fact that a pink marshmallow can go toe-to-toe with some of the most destructive forces of destiny the world has ever seen. Yes, that's a joke. I'm aware that Kirby is probably the most powerful being in the entire roster, play along for a second. Smash Bros features characters of all shapes and sizes, so it's not unusual for someone big or small to have their true size altered to some degree when being imported. The problem was, according to Smash's developers, Ridley was canonically too massive in size to be implemented into Smash, and at first glance, that was a completely reasonable assumption to make. He towers above most other characters, 4 meters tall at the very least, and unlike Bowser or DDD, who for the most part have circular designs and therefore can be scaled up or down, Ridley has a lot of detail. Downsizing him would be quite the challenge, especially when taking into consideration his method of fighting being a very aerial-focused one. True to his appearance, Ridley is a heavyweight, though surprisingly he's actually lighter than Samus by 1 point. At 107 units of weight, he's actually closer to Mario than he is to Ganondorf, DK, DDD, K. Rool, and most certainly Bowser, though I'd imagine they did that intentionally to keep him balanced. Multi-jumpers have an inherent advantage in aerial combat thanks to their ability to stay up in the air for longer periods of time. As such, granting them substantial weight can be a little overpowered. While King DDD is also a multi-jumper, it's hamstrung by its aerial mobility, or lack thereof. He doesn't really move very well in the air. Unsurprisingly, Ridley's greatest strength comes in the form of his incredible aerial pressure. He's got fantastic effective range courtesy of his wings and tail, while having equal parts speed and power to boot. Combine that with 2 mid-air jumps as opposed to the usual 1 and serviceable air physics, and he's got a very threatening advantage state. Like other big body characters, his massive size can work for or against him. Obviously when attacking it's a benefit, and when being attacked it's a detriment. In terms of attacking, Ridley has a solid balance of Bowser and DK's front-loaded speed and power, with DDD's penchant for performing walls of pain. His neutral, forward, back, and up air all have low enough end lag to be used with each jump, and they possess some of the best attack range of their kind. Even against other mid-range threats like swordies, Ridley has no trouble contesting their space, more so in the air. None of this comes at the cost of his grounded pressure though. I would argue aside from Incineroar and Kazuya, Ridley's ground game is among the best of the heavyweights. His rapid jab does a ton of damage, forward tilt is an all-around good spacing and whiff punish tool with great kill power when sweet spotted while being notably safer on shield than it looks. Up tilt is an excellent anti-air move that combos into itself and leads into any one of his aerials at higher percents. Down tilt has tremendous horizontal range and the same combo potential as his up tilt. Dash attack is a moderately slow but powerful burst option that can be used to close out stocks. Finally, Ridley's smash attacks each serve their own purpose. Forward smash is your garden variety kill move and is one of the strongest in the game. Up smash is arguably his best one. While it suffers from blind spots on its side, it's a disjointed wide arcing slash that to my knowledge is large enough to cover the entire span of a battlefield platform. Down smash, while the slowest, is a powerful ground pound that can be used to whiff punish get up attack or incorrect tech options. In fact, it can cover almost the entire cast options to get off the ledge. Just from his normals alone, Ridley has basically the same effective range as a sword fighter if not more, while having the expected kill power of your average heavyweight. Design-wise, it's cool to see him make use of all the parts of himself to exert pressure from his claws, to his wings, to his tail, and legs. His specials also come with their own functions that create ways to circumvent his opponent's defenses. Plasma Breath is one of the most brainless edge guarding tools that can be used to gimp anyone with a linear recovery path, and it can force a get up option if you angle it so that it rolls off the ledge. Meanwhile, Space Pirate Rush is a dangerous command grab that's not only really difficult to mash out of, but also drags his opponent towards the edge of the platform or stage. If it doesn't outright kill them, it sets them up for an easy edge guard where he thrives. Even his up B, Wing Blitz, widely considered to be an underwhelming recovery option, is hard to challenge directly in light of being a disjointed attack, and the downward variant can cheese 2 framing options if you figure out the timing. In totality, Ridley's moveset is great. He does have a few quote-unquote useless moves like down air and down B, but overall there's a healthy balance of speed, range, and power, a strong early to mid percent combo game that transitions into any number of strong kill options at high percent. Unlike most other heavyweights who have a straightforward if not one-dimensional game plan, Ridley's a very adaptable character thanks to his attributes. Theoretically anyway, his effective range gives him an edge against most stubby characters who struggle to get a hit in. His ability to set up a wall of pain grants him the upper hand against long-range fighters who lack the frame data to escape combos or the recovery to get back to stage. His dash command grab can severely punish anyone who likes to shield a lot, and the sheer force behind his attacks means he usually wins a battle of stray hits. Essentially, Ridley has an answer to almost every situation. It doesn't necessarily mean an easy answer, but it's an answer nonetheless. So, having spent the first half of the video dissecting his impressive moveset, what's the reason behind players not using him that much? I should say there are a lot of reasons, but 3 in particular that come to mind. The first one is that he swings very far in either direction, to the point where you can even consider him a glass cannon contrary to its appearance and weight. The prevailing theme around heavyweights is that to offset their overwhelming strength, their attacks are made very slow in startup and/or end lag, but to account for the fact that they're going to be taking more hits than they can dish out, it's somewhat evened out by their heavier weight, allowing them to survive longer. The most competitively viable heavyweight prior to Kazuya would have to go to Bowser, and much of that has to do with his insane endurance. He survives easily past 150% on the regular. Most of the time, if you see him die early, it's because his opponent exploited his linear recovery. Conversely, Bowser can rip you to pieces with just a few neutral interactions, placing the onus on the other person to minimize their periods of vulnerability so as not to let that happen. Where Ridley falls into all of this is that he doesn't have that safety margin. Like I said, he's lighter than even his rival Samus. Yes, he's heavy relative to the rest of the cast, but he's not that heavy. In other words, Ridley can dish it out, but he can't take it. This is further exacerbated by having one of the largest hurt boxes in the game, and not that much intangibility on his moves when he attacks, leaving him prone to extending said hurtbox a lot. He faces a considerably higher risk of dying much earlier from being in disadvantage, and heavyweights are notorious for the susceptibility to being comboed and edge-guarded. While it's true that Ridley's got a lot more offensive options than other heavyweights, he suffers from the absence of defensive options in the same way, only he can't afford to take as much punishment as those other heavyweights. Having a large hurtbox is only a problem if you don't have the right tools to work around it. Ideally, yes, the smaller you are the better, but it's not as big of an issue as many would say in concept. The problem for Ridley is that he doesn't have those workarounds to neutralize that weakness enough to find consistent results in the pro scene. Take for example his recovery. Technically speaking, Ridley is a multi-jumper, but he only has one extra jump, not 4 the way Jigglypuff, Kirby, and Meta Knight do. A third jump does open a lot of different options for Ridley that are inaccessible to anyone without one, but it's not sufficient enough to fix his poor recovery. He has a lot of different ways to get back to ledge either from above, below, or the side, but their linearity makes it easy for the majority of the cast to edge guard him, especially in light of how big he is to hit. Another big boy like Rob has Robo Burner, which offers a near infinite number of ways to get back onto the stage. Not just where he can recover from, but when he can recover. Stalling your return to ledge makes you less susceptible to two-framing. Ridley doesn't have that luxury, nor is he able to fight his way back that much. Now, if hypothetically Wing Blitz behaved like Firefox or Octoslash and let him decide which direction he wanted to go rather than only 4, that would significantly improve his recovery, but it wouldn't solve the root problem of him being too unforgiving to play. His massive size, lack of flexibility, and subpar endurance while on disadvantage renders him far too inconsistent and competitive, even if he has a decent neutral and powerful advantage. Granted, a lot of top tier characters have bad disadvantages like Roy, Kazuya, and Min, but they're not as big as Ridley, therefore not as easy of a target to hit. On the subject of inconsistency, Ridley's second crippling issue is that his moves, while individually effective, have flaws, with some even being downright awful. Up tilt and up smash are terrific anti-airs with good damage, decent speed and long range, but they have egregious blind spots on the sides of him. Plasma Breath can only safely be used when his opponent's off stage or across the stage. Space Pirate Rush has insane end lag if you miss it, and is very easy to react to given its startup and where you would expect most Ridley players to use it. And the most problematic one would have to be the abundance of sour spots on his attacks, demanding that players space very carefully if they want to make the most out of his kit. However, since he has such a massive hurtbox, that means poorly spaced attacks can result in bad trades. It's not like Marth, where even if you don't get tippers, you're not putting yourself in too much danger. The inconsistency in his moves can make him feel very awkward to play. The entire appeal of large heavyweight fighters is that they don't place as much of an emphasis on precision, rather patience. Ridley needs both patience and precision, even though he himself is a massive target. You can see this most conspicuously when he's fighting zoners or long-range fighters, fittingly against his rival Samus. As mentioned before, Plasma Breath is not a reliable projectile to use in neutral. His bulky size makes approaching almost impossible without getting hit, and his attacks aren't disjointed enough to beat out projectiles. Even if they can, you have to be on point with your spacing, and bear in mind, he can't face tank as easily as other heavyweights. There are just as many situations where Ridley gets destroyed by his opponent as there are situations where Ridley destroys them. Thing is, he doesn't have enough of the right tools to diminish the probability of those losing situations. He's big, but is missing the durability to balance it out. He's got a fantastic aerial game, but is quite vulnerable in the air himself. He has great effective range, but not enough disjointed range. He has recovery options, but not enough mix-up to guarantee his safety. His punish game is arguably top tier, but he doesn't have ways to force opponents who don't want to approach, and his frame data isn't fast enough to box the characters who do want to approach. Finding success on Ridley boils down to a test of patience and a mix-up heavy playstyle. He has really good tools, but not enough of those tools to where you don't have to think about it and you get results. And that brings us to his third main issue. There's nothing in Ridley's kit, practical assets that is, that incentivizes players to use him over other fighters or even his fellow heavyweights. If you think about it, he's got the range of a sortie like Sephiroth, Shulk, or Ike, but with the added inconvenience of a massive hurtbox. He possesses the same vulnerability as the likes of Bowser, K. Rool, and Donkey Kong, but with the added inconvenience of being far lighter. In response, what does he have to offer that sets him apart from other heavyweights? Damage? Yeah, he has good damage, but so does everyone else. Range? Heavyweights also have good range. They're called sorties without being sorties for a reason. Recovery? I mean, he has an extra jump, but I would hardly say his recovery is that much better than theirs. What about edge guarding? Maybe, but edge guarding is only a virtue if you can consistently throw your opponents off stage, as well as the lack of base power to kill them while on stage. Heavyweights as a class aren't too concerned about edge guarding because more often than not they have strong enough attacks to close out stocks on stage, or their name is Donkey Kong and insta-kill anyone with cargo throw past 80%. Projectile? Plasma Breath can force jumps, but only if you're on an FT type stage. Besides, I would argue K. Rool has better projectiles. At a shield game? Not the worst, but certainly not the best, nowhere near as dangerous as Bowser's. Kill throws? Not really. You get the idea. It's Inkling Syndrome all over again. If you isolate Ridley's moveset and evaluate it in a vacuum, they're all good moves. Back air, up air, forward tilt, up smash, up tilt, down tilt, side B, neutral B, etc. But if you place them together in the context of someone like Ridley, it doesn't make him stand out enough in any aspect, or an aspect that doesn't get dulled by his myriad of weak points. Since Ultimate has over 80-something characters, to stand out you either have to have great stats across the board and weaknesses that at the very least can be suppressed with good fundamentals or skill execution, or you need to specialize in something. A great example would be Kazuya. Kazuya sucks at a lot of things. He's slow, his air game is ass, his disadvantage is one of the worst in the game, he's got short range, very linear approach options, the list goes on and on. But if he so much as lands a single grab or electric, you dead as f***. Yes, he has a ton of weaknesses, but all those weaknesses are irrelevant if it's on someone who needs only one successful neutral interaction and combo string to close out your stock. Ridley doesn't really have that X factor. He's too balanced of a character. If he had an extra jump, so he can jump 3 times in the air instead of 2, that might be enough to set him apart from other heavyweights, because now you have a massive dragon with comparable aerial pressure to Jigglypuff. That's Ridley's problem right now. By all accounts, and to most players, he feels kind of like a Pokemon Nuzlocke run, a character with extra restrictions that only make things harder without necessarily rewarding you for overcoming them. When competing at the upper echelon of play, it's in a player's best interest to minimize the number of things that can go wrong, especially the things that you have no agency in stopping. You have some degree of control over, say, Sephiroth's frailty in that you have to just avoid getting hit too much, but for Ridley, he's so big that it's physically impossible to dodge certain attacks, stuff like that. Anyways, that about wraps up everything I have to say about Ridley. Similarly to my previous episode on Ken, Ridley's a good character, very fun to play if nothing else, but he has more problems than most people are comfortable handling when it comes to using him in competitive. Right now, the only Ridley players I can think of off the top of my head would be Mezcal and Nair. That's about it. I do wish we can see him more often though, he's one of the cooler design heavyweights for sure. If you guys enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe. Consider following me on Twitter at Vars for spicy takes, joining my Discord server, I'm trying to grow the Smash community in there, and don't forget to check out my other Why No One Plays episodes if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.